All right, welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 52. Tonight, my guest is Michael Bancroft. We're going to be talking about secret societies, ancient civilizations, and dreamscapes. He's got this comic called The Lucent. If you haven't heard of it yet, where you been? Where you been? It's out and about. It's there. It's on volume 2. Check it out. We'll talk about that tonight. We got Hurin the Steadfast. What's up, Hurin? We got Dark Lord Fudd going on here. And Bancroft is here. He's here. Dear Man's YouTube channel. What's up? How's it going? Jasper Plan 9. Hey. Spicer McLeroy. What's going on? Hey. Captain Bipto. Yesterday's show with Kelsey. Yesterday's show. It turned into a good show. If you skip the first 35 minutes. Thank you for joining the channel, Twirly Wolf. Appreciate that. New member. Thank you, thank you. Very nice, man. Appreciate it. Anonymity T2, what's up? The Art and Times, J. Ryan. Hey, how's it going? Ancient Astronaut Theorists say yes. Dark Lord, what's up? Talking to everybody else in the chat, which is great. Cunto Hair, how you doing? Poop indeed, but we won't be talking that tonight. Manny Corneo, how's it going? Dr. Mask is here too. So is Ruby Jade. Very nice. Citizen Ronan. There he is. There's the man right there in the chat. And then we got American Comics Company. How's it going? Paulus Arts. Michael Deach. Man, oh man, I want to say hi to everybody. Sumo Thori. We got another one. Spicer McLeroy. Thank you for the membership as well. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining the channel. Means a lot. Your support helps all the time. Enables us to do what we do here. Just Jason. What's up, Jason? How's it going? And then we also have Seer of All That Is Obvious. Hey. Let's see. Dr. Mask. Is that a new King Cryptid shirt? It's actually a prototype shirt from like 2 years ago. I'm messing around with it. I do like the logo and stuff like that, but not the image and the print it's off. But it's, it's a prototype shirt and it's mine. It's one of. Paulus is Pete was talking to the chat for the first 35 minutes. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. You guys had some pretty good questions too, and I got a chance to cover some stuff. But it was a good conversation with Kelsey last night. We'll have a good conversation with Michael tonight. Chuck Reardon as well. World at War Comics. What's up? Okay, that's it. Without further ado, let's bring on the one, the only, the man of the hour, Mr. Michael Bancroft. What's up, Michael?
I made it. I'm here.
You're here. Indeed.
I didn't let you down, Pete. I would never let you down.
You never do. You never do. In the flesh. Look at that.
That's it.
On time. He's on Australian time.
Yeah.
He's a whole
another.
Yeah, it's a whole other day.
It's the future.
Kelsey.
It's Monday.
I love Kelsey, but he's like, oh yeah, that's right. You're an hour. It's an hour off. We got Mike here. He's on time.
Mountain time, Eastern time, Central.
Blowing right past
do
all
Aussie
that.
time. That's how you do it.
Now, before we do get started, you had a recent trip to the United States, right? How'd that go?
I did. It was amazing. It was fantastic. It was my first ever time to the States. It was obviously my first ever time meeting a bunch of amazing people. Probably some of them might be here in the chat. I think Twirly Wolf was definitely there. And it was my first time ever to a comic book convention, especially tabling on one. I've never been to one
convention
before.
ever? Wow.
Well, I went to one when I was a kid, but I think it was just like all I remember was Star Wars toys, which I was very interested in, but I don't remember comic books or anything, so yeah, I'm going to say it's my first.
Awesome. Did you have a good time?
I loved it. I loved it. I'm super energized. I want to do more. I want to come back. I want to meet more people. I want to get involved in the scene. Yeah, it was really exciting, and I loved America. I mean, I didn't get to see much of it. Obviously, the majority of it I got to see in the airport, but everyone was really nice. I feel like Australia and the US, there's a lot of the same. There's tiny differences, but they're mostly superficial. I think we're the same culture. I mean, there are some kind of things. It's a bit of commie land down here, but other than that, it's good. It's good. We can vibe together.
Well, we'll be there soon enough. Does that make you feel better?
No, I wish it was. I wish it was going the opposite direction. Actually,
well, parts of here are kind of soon enough already there. But that's a conversation for another day. Although kind of sort of blends into what we're talking about tonight.
Does a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Ruby Jade, he showed up. Lizello, quick question here. Yes, King Cryptid will be available to purchase still in September. Thank you very much. Paula says, Bancroft, the best around. Nothing's going to get him down.
I love those clips you play at the start of your show, by the way.
Oh, thanks you. Yeah,
selections.
Man. Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, all that stuff. It's a little bit of what makes me me.
Yeah. I went to see Balboa in the cinema when it came out. I was in Wellington, New Zealand. We were on a little tour thing, and I went back the next day because I had to see that speech again. I was so taken by that speech. I had to go back and watch it again.
Oh yeah, I love it. Every time when I'm like digging deep, I'll put on that film, and it always just hits the right spot. Now, speaking of digging deep, tonight we are going to dig deep. We're going to have a conversation here about a bunch of things that might get us in trouble. Is that okay with you, Michael?
Hopefully, yes. That's what I want to do. Shake the cage, rattle the cage a little bit.
I'm ready. I got my Time Life books here. Here's Mystic Places. Here's one about what we're talking about tonight: ancient wisdom and secret societies, secret secrets, and mysterious creatures. I love them. You ever see those?
I don't have any of that.
Oh man,
I wish I
did. Good stuff. Anybody in the chat got those? There's a couple more as well. I'm always tracking them down when I'm out and about at a used bookstores and stuff. But these were gifts to me from my wife. And man, oh man, I used to love those as a kid. I used to take those out from the library as a kid. All that. Oh yes,
that's exactly what I was thinking. And whenever I went to the library at school, and they're like, you can take out 3 books or whatever, mine would all be paranormal, sort of secrets and stuff like that. So it seems like we're very simpatico on that level.
Totally, man. Yeah, and I think that's kind of what got me interested further into comic books. Because it's sort of like a parallel subject matter in a way, because it's all the unknown and the mysterious and the impossible becoming possible and all of that kind of stuff. And I really think it kind of fueled my love of comics. Do you think that had anything to do with your love of comics or storytelling too?
No, but I definitely started diving down that path afterwards. I got into comics because of my friends. I got into comics in the boom of the early 90s. Everyone was reading comics. All the boys were, and the girls were laughing at us. It was a very different time back then. But no, ever since then, no, I was when the X-Files came out, I was like, oh my god, it's mainstream now. This whole idea. So
it's funny because
I've always loved that stuff.
They touched upon a couple of things that were kind of ridiculous looking back, that they were able to actually even mention some of that stuff. Like some of the Scully just drives me nuts. It's like, how many things you got to go through. So that's always driven me nuts.
Wasn't she? I remember once, I can't remember, it was so long ago. Didn't she once actually see aliens with her own 2 eyes and then still go, look, I don't think this is real? Yeah,
she experiences more than Mulder.
Yeah. And she's still like, oh, we need evidence.
Yeah, and it's like, it's all around you. It's all around you. And it's cool to be a healthy skeptic. Absolutely, you should. But she's so dismissive, and the stuff that she'll come up with, and it is a proper portrayal, because there's a lot of people like that with that cognitive dissonance, and they can't tell, and they don't want to know, and they don't want to believe it at all, no matter what, even when it's right in front of them. So it is kind of interesting writing to have it set up like that, but she's so dismissive, and the stuff that she'll go, well, maybe it's this and this and the other thing instead, it's crazier than anything Mulder could even come up with.
That's actually true. That's a real thing, and we've noticed that on college campuses and in academia and everywhere else, where people who are smart and they kind of teach themselves how to critical theory and everything, they can wrap their minds up into pretzels to rationalize things because they don't want to accept what's staring them in the face.
Yeah.
Because that would unravel all their worldview. So they'll come up with the most crazy, convoluted explanations as to why maybe this doesn't work or maybe this can't be that, and that actually leads into a fair amount, I think, of what's happening today in the sciences and anthropology and history and everything, which ties into the whole secret society stuff.
Absolutely, yeah, because it's all connected. All of it is connected. Some people think it's so compartmentalized that it's just these little facets, but nothing is compartmentalized. Everything is connected and affected by everything else. But it's funny because you could show people like a certain section, let's say, of the water erosion on the Sphinx, and then they'll go, oh, clearly water erosion. You don't tell them it's the Sphinx. And then you pan out and it's the Sphinx, and then they'll come up with some excuse that there's no way, there's no possible way that's water. It is something else now, But it's clearly that.
And it's been happening the whole time. It's been happening the whole time. I was so into science stuff for about 4 or 5 years. That was all I was watching, and then I got so fed up with it because I came to realize, all of the people involved in this are like in their own little cults. They're little specific cults of their own fields, and none of them talk to each other, and none of them cross-pollinate ideas or anything like that, and it gets so incredibly frustrating. I ended up actually marrying I got a real passion for history with that stuff, and learned about the history of science. Oh man, it is so frustrating. I feel like we could be flying to Mars by now if people actually talk to each other and let their egos aside. Essentially, the history of science is, and this goes for all sciences and all research, is it's just basically waiting for certain people to die, so that because they are the head of department or whatever, and once they're dead, okay, we can finally look at some new stuff here. But until then, I guess we're stuck just believing nonsense, even though we have a mountain of evidence to the contrary right beside us. We can't look at that because that's outside of the field. It's maddening.
Yeah. It feels like it's that way with a lot of things, whether it's the sciences or whether it's a government or corporations or whatever it may be.
It's people.
There's the old blood that's clinging, to this power. And they don't want to let any of it go. They don't want to, the paradigm, they don't want to see it shift. They don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want to leave it up to the next generation or two or whatever. And even then, they want to make sure that it's really difficult for even them to move forward with certain things.
Well, some of these guys, it's like their life work. That friggin' Egyptologist dude who's like a friggin' stick in the mud. Like, he won't budge on anything,
There's so many.
And it's just like, come on, man. Come on. He won't look at anything. But you just gotta, I can understand you work on something for 50 years and it's your life's work, and then something comes around and it's like, well, hang on. What's this? We're getting into Graham Hancock. What's the deal with this Göbekli Tepe thing here? I thought that, civilizations weren't supposed to be around then. Don't worry about it. Okay, it doesn't affect what I'm doing over here, in another country.
Among a half a dozen other more examples too, going back further and further. It's absolutely crazy. And the thing is that it completely goes against science on that level. It completely I mean, what's more exciting in the realm of science than to say that there's still frontiers yet to be explored? There's still things still to be discovered. There's still questions that have to be answered, but instead now you see across the board that narrative, so much of it is spread throughout science, but more so the government spreading approved science with the whole, these questions are answered. This is the narrative.
The science
this is
is
the
settled.
Official. Yeah, it's done.
Has there ever been a more evil quote than the science is settled, and what people will go through and do to other people based on that? Like, this is it. You got to trust the science, and And
I'm
then
guessing Zahi Hawass is who you're talking about, right?
Zahi Was, yeah. And then
That guy.
inexplicably, when the science, what they mean science is, I mean, like you said, government approved. All of a sudden, that science can change, and then now that's the new settled science, and
Yeah.
it's pretty maddening.
And it's been that way for hundreds upon hundreds of years. Like, this isn't a modern thing. And then when you trace
No.
it back to certain power constructs with certain societies and the secret societies that, especially within your book, I'm really intrigued on that level with what you touch upon with that. You really see the power structure set up so that even within the secret society, there's plausible deniability. So there's people who only know certain things, so that they only know maybe one or two others within the society. So everybody's just like, I only know this guy, I only know that other guy, and they only know this, and we only know that. We're only told what we're told. So everyone along the way is either not informed, and then you can say that they don't know what they know, or if they do know what they know, they're not going to tell anyone else what they know. So it's this crazy layer of secrecy. And I think, even though I'm pretty confident that probably 90% of their secrets have been blabbed about at this point, there's still that 10% that's like, what the hell's
it's amazing,
going on?
actually, that whole thing with, like, we're in a really unique position in time, I think, now, where you could literally have a UFO come and land in the middle of Times Square, and people could film it. And I don't think it would make much of a splash, because most of the population would say, "Oh, that's fake. That it's CGI, or it's a government psyop, or whatever it is." Like, we're in a really weird position where all these different things we could learn about or find evidence for, and just everyone is so kind of jaded and burnt, and it's really weird. It's a really weird time.
Yeah, it really is. Do you? It just sounds like this is gonna sound like a weird question. Do you have a favorite secret society? Is there one that interests you the most?
No, not really. I'm not like, no, I wouldn't say so. I don't know I don't actually know too much about specific secret societies. I'm more of a, when I got into it, especially for what I was thinking about with my own story, it was more just like the
Maintain
idea
that plausible
of
deniability,
these,
Michael. It's good.
yeah, of these things. And I've always loved stories that involve them. I remember when they came out with that, that Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah.
And I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan, and I was so worried for almost the whole film that they had taken Sherlock Holmes into the realm of the paranormal, because they got me good. And then, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, I mean, it's 15 years old by now, but it turns out that it was all just illusions and stuff. And I was like, oh, that is so clever. And they've done that. They really did a great, like, secret society in that film as well. So I'm just really always drawn to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Eric says his favorite secret society is the Whisper Network. Yeah, that causing some trouble.
I mean, that's how they start. And it's all based on secrets and knowledge. Mm-hmm. And the more secrets and knowledge you attain, the more blackmail you attain, the more corruption there is within that secret society, the more you have to be doing what it is they want you to do. It even goes back to things that are, I mean, honestly, Epstein Island had to do with some kind of secret society stuff happening. Whether it's one that we know of or one that we don't know of. Every single thing about that screams secret society.
And it has its fingers all the way up into all levels of government and business and even royalty. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's the same stuff of, like, you go down that path, you do certain things, you're going to attain certain power and certain access to whatever, you're going to get money, but you do all these weird, horrible things in the mix, and it's all used as blackmail against you in case you end up being that guy who all of a sudden gets a conscience and you want to end this madness. And we see this stuff happen time and again, and it's really strange, because now we're coming across a lot of stuff like this it's just out in the open. It's just out. It's not even a secret anymore. So you get all these things that are under the guise of of these authoritarian style ruler type people that aren't even elected. Like, it's funny when I see people that are screaming about democracy, save democracy, all this other stuff. Meanwhile, they're not even aware, I think, of all the people that are out there that are basically representing or at least pushing various things into play. And you didn't elect them. You don't even know who the hell they are. They're just out there, whether they're in the WEF or wherever else, and they're just getting together, having their meetings, pushing their initiatives and their narratives and their agendas. And people just scream here about fair elections or wherever across the world. All I can think is, if we could have the most fair, honest elections in the world. It doesn't matter, because what's happening with everyone else within that construct that they're doing, it's taking all of that aspect of it away. And they're telling the leaders we elect, if it's even fair, which that's dubious, they're telling them what to do. So it's like, democracy, okay.
And the amazing thing about the WEF is, I mean, they've sort of taken on the visual language and the whole way of presenting themselves after Spectre from James Bond. I mean, they literally dress, talk, and kind of act like them. It is really bizarre to witness it all happen pretty much out in the open now, and it's it's crazy.
Yeah, like Klaus Schwab. Oh my lord, he's like right out of a Bond villain.
Yeah, he literally, I've seen him dressed
got,
like freaking what's his name, Blofeld, or whoever that guy was. I can't remember, but it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Even sounds like a Bond villain. Even his whole backstory sounds exactly like something out of a James Bond kind of thing. Whatever you could find anyway on the guy. The whole thing's insane, and there's so much of it throughout. So, and we're seeing it pervade into every aspect of everything, to the point that, like I said, if we don't get some warning on this stream, if we don't get the stream taken down, what a miracle that is. They must just be allowing it to be. But
they used to have the conspiracy theory
constant stuff,
thing would come
and
up
I'll still
anytime
see
you
it every
mention
now
anything.
and then. But yeah, absolutely. In the chat, are you guys interested in this stuff? Are you guys into it? Looks like you guys are. Looks like everybody's pretty well versed with a lot of this. Even, you get Baz talking about the Bilderberg meetings. Now it's out in the open.
Davos.
WEF, World Economic Forum. That's where you see a lot of the different stuff being pushed. That's essentially what's responsible for the woke agenda, transhumanist movement. I mean, hell, transhumanist. You want to talk about a huge transhumanist? Someone who was like comic book villain levels of transhumanist, going back to Jeffrey Epstein. That dude was a huge transhumanist. He had this whole idea to forcibly impregnate women, to basically carry his superhuman seed.
It's like that. Have you seen? Are you familiar with Foundation?
Tons of money just going into it. Yeah.
Story. They've made a TV show about it. It reminds me of that. It's like, this guy just wanted to live forever as a clone of himself. It's a bit like the Empire in Star Wars. Yeah, it really is crazy. It really is crazy, scary, and I don't know how anyone is going to stop it, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
so massive now. They kind of, and people have been mentioning BlackRock and Vanguard, and these massive companies that own almost everything, or at least they have their fingers in almost everything.
Yeah, when you put them all together, I mean, what happened to, I don't know about, and this is where I was going to say, I don't know about Australian antitrust laws, but in the US there used to be such things because it was considered completely un-American, essentially, to push a monopoly, because it eliminates competition and everything else. But the thing is that most of the monopolies that were occurring because people just did it better than anyone else within that field. The government is perfectly fine with the various monopolies that it has, and then on top of it, now when you have these things that are like these proxy monopolies with these investment groups, it's existing outside of any one country's law because they're completely international and transnational. So you're getting this whole concept of all these companies that own everything, and under what guise of law is going to stop them? You know, so they can have these monopolies on all these various industries and everything else, and all of a sudden you look around and you're like, wow, there's only like 4 or 5 groups that kind of own almost everything.
Yeah.
And then they look at, because that's the thing too. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was going to say that's the thing too, is that now you see people like us in entrepreneurial kind of positions and a lot of other small business owners, and then you wonder, you know, why we all have a target on our back for everything.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's happening in the States, but actually it is happening in the States because so many places I went to in the States don't accept cash anymore. And it's happening here as well. And I think Australia might be one of the first places that are going to get rid of cash. Everything will be digital. And, you know, we know the WEF wants to introduce digital IDs. They'll be able to track everything, block. I mean, we've seen what happens when these companies say, oh, we don't like what you said on such and such, so we're going to, you know, get rid of your bank account or whatever it is. And now all of a sudden, yeah, you got this unelected multinational corporations with highly dubious ideologies, yeah, like tightening the screws and putting the thumbs on people such as ourselves. It's pretty terrifying.
Yeah. It's like tale as old as time though too, because the more you dive into it and you learn about it, the more you're like, oh, this isn't something recent. This is something that looks like it's very recent because there's a lot of modern things being used in such a capacity to make you feel like it's something recent, like social media, the internet, that kind of a thing. But this is stuff that's been going on for, again, hundreds of years, you know, and just in various different ways. It really is, it's something that, and I don't want to get people so downhearted about all this, thinking that, well, what's the point now? You know what I mean? If anything, that's the interesting part of this, is because they're counting on everybody to just lay down and just give in. Mm-hmm. Like, they're not going to forcibly go in there and just take over, because there's going to be so many people that all of a sudden rise up and go, wait, nope, not happening. So they want to kind of convince everybody that this is the best thing for them, and then make you go, oh yeah, you're right, and then you just all of a sudden give in, and then before you know it, it's too late. And
we see that fascism comes with a smile.
Yeah.
Totally.
And
seems
and
like
no,
we're on the same page here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not calling you guys doomers. I don't want to have me and Michael be perceived as such, because I think we're still. I'm not, of course, optimistic about those kinds of people doing those kinds of things. I'm optimistic about the human spirit, because that's the other part, is that even though this stuff is as old as humanity, what's also as old as humanity is people fighting back. Yeah. You know, so
I think it's the eternal struggle that's been going on forever. I talked about this when I was talking about a month ago about Comicsgate. It's like, if you want to go really high level on this fight never ends. I mean, there will always be people who just want to be left alone and be free, fighting against people who, for some reason, can't leave anyone alone. And that will go on as long as there are people in the world. Like, that will never end. So that struggle is always with us. It will always be with us. And, you know, there'll be certain different ebbs and flows of what's going on and how it's actually working day to day. But that's just, I think that's just life as a human being in a civilization.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it. You know, and that's just kind of how it is going to be. And that's why I think you hit upon one thing that really was interesting to me, because you said as long as there's people, that's how it's going to be. And we're seeing more and more of a push towards that. That's the whole point of the transhumanist movement, is to essentially say how flawed humanity is, both biologically and psychologically, and that wouldn't we be so much better if we just merged with tech and created not just a singularity, but this we transcend what it means to be human, and we just submit to the tech, to the AI, to the whatever, because it's better than us, and it'll make us better. And then you're seeing it across the board of things that are inherently human, and especially when it comes to emotion. And with emotion, people always think, well, anger and things like the bad emotion, but there's compassion, there's love, there's all these things that are good emotions, good things about humanity and people, and it's like seeing that wanting to be erased and given into technology because they view us as flawed in some capacity. When meanwhile, you can go back to ancient civilizations and they did things that we don't even know how they did them.
Yeah. I was just thinking that. I was just thinking what you're saying is, so the more they get people hooked to a larger system, an institution, big government, whatever it is, through whatever they do, then those people are every single step of the way less and less self-reliant. So if there's any kind of disruption to that system, and there are always, that's the one thing, there are always disruptions. If it's not war, if it's not famine, disease, it's a friggin' cataclysm from the sky. Something comes, and then if your whole existence is predicated that you're plugged into this mammoth infrastructure, and that infrastructure goes away, you're done. You're screwed.
This mammoth centralized thing.
Yeah. So I think that's why so many of us, especially here in this space, we don't want to be super reliant on this massive thing that is completely out of our control. Obviously the things that we have to plug into, but we want to kind of go our own way as much as we can, because you never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, all of this ties into comic books and storytelling on our level, because as bleak as some of this may be, I find that it's really inspiring for storytelling too. And I think that not to toot our own horns as storytellers, but it's written through history about how much storytelling can be used as a tool to inspire and motivate people and transcend generations. These stories can, if effective enough, if they resonate enough, they can live far past your years, and still move and motivate people and teach them something about not just the values of what it is to be a human being, but also about how much so many things haven't really changed. We can look at something from 2,000 years ago, a text or whatever. You touch upon Gilgamesh in the Lucent, if I'm correct. You could look at that story and still get something from it today.
Yeah.
How is that possible if we've changed so much?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some of these things, it's part of being a human. That's why they resonate, and we can relate, and we can learn from them, and we can get solace from them, I think. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that these empires, these things that come about that want to control our lives to every degree, eventually do get overthrown every time by either people who come in, or the people just, they yearn for that innate sense of freedom that I think all people have. So, and we saw a little bit of that during the pandemic, during the lockdown. I was really disappointed
how that
went down. Yeah. But there were glimmers of some hope through all of it. So,
and if you notice, all of a sudden things started to subside, and they started backing off as soon as it seemed to hit a point, not exactly the boiling point or the melting point, but the point right before what it looked like that was going to be. All of a sudden, restrictions were lifted, various things were going away, all this other stuff started backing off month after month. And it's interesting how that occurred, because, and even today I was talking about it with my wife about how it was just, and not that I want to see this kind of thing occur either, but how it seemed to be a relative period of peace among terrorists. Now, as a comic book fiction writer, if all the heroes are busy, this is what pissed me off about the first Marvel Civil War. If all the heroes are busy fighting among each other or doing something else, right? You'd figure all the villains, that's when they swoop in to take advantage of the situation, right?
Yeah.
But during the time of the pandemic, it was relatively quiet. It's like almost no one did anything. Everyone was just listening to the governments tell them to not do stuff until it became, okay, this is too much. This is ridiculous. But it still wasn't. It's like there was world peace all of a sudden. No more terrorism. No more anything. No one at war with each other. No enemies. No anything occurring. Nothing. No squabbles. Nothing at all. At least from what we're being told. So it was very odd to me about that. And now, I mean, we could go back and that's a whole 5 other shows in terms of the CIA and everything else's part in some of that stuff. But it was very odd to me how that occurred.
Oh, there was a lot of odd things that happened during that period of time that people should probably take a very close look at as to, why certain things just didn't become a problem for a couple of years all of a sudden. I wasn't familiar with the terror stuff, but all sorts of things. The flu just disappeared for 2 years. It just took a little vacation.
It was
That's
respectful,
odd, isn't it?
It was like
Isn't
you guys are going
you're
through
busy.
enough.
You've got enough on your plate.
Yeah,
I'll just sit back for the moment.
I'll go away for a year.
Also,
so nice of the flu
at my daughter's school. Right up until the pandemic, it was just climate change, everything. We took maths, we'll bring in some climate change. We're doing English, well, we'll study a climate change article. That's what it was like. And then it was just gone for like 2 years. No one talked about it. It was very odd. And now it's back with a vengeance. It's very funny how that all happens.
Yeah, it was very, very odd. And the thing is too is that even going into that seems like it's being run by a secret society in terms of the climate change agenda. Because you notice how you don't hear pollution. Pollution's not really a word that's used anymore, right? You hear climate change. Because pollution is a word where, okay, well, you just don't pollute. You don't litter, you don't purposefully do something to destroy the environment, whatever that may be. And that pollution from corporations especially was a hot topic issue for like the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, because, who's in the back pocket of all the corporations and so on, and vice versa, all of a sudden now it's climate change. And who's to blame? Largely everyone but the corporations. And the elite who
it's you and it's me.
Yeah, it's not the people who have, the private jet here and there everywhere. It's not the people who own the big gigantic homes that need massive amounts of electricity and power to heat and cool and so on and so forth, or use tons of water to water their land. It's not any of those people. If anything, those people are usually the ones telling you how bad you are for driving your car to work. Like, how dare you drive a car to work? What's wrong with you?
You use a plastic straw? What are you?
Yeah.
A monster?
Yeah. You're basically a damn serial killer using plastic straw to drink a drink.
They're almost practically illegal. I mean, you get caught with a plastic straw in Melbourne, it's worse than having a machete. It's crazy.
Yeah. So and the hypocrisy is ridiculous in terms of that narrative that's been pushed. Even the concept of encouraging kids to not go to school because that somehow is going to fix the climate. It's not even like they were out and about and they're doing something within their community to clean up the community. Like if there's a polluted pond or the park is really overwhelmed with trash or something is going on. If anything, a lot of those protests left tons of trash everywhere. And they just it was ridiculous. So it's the weird narrative that's pushed across the board and always targeted at the youth over and over again, constantly. I mean, this is stuff that's been going back for a long time. Like I said, if we don't get banned tonight, we've been allowed to exist with this conversation. But,
we're slid under the radar.
That's why Michael's like, yeah, let's do this on your channel, Pete. Let's have this on your channel.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
you mess with my algorithm.
But I appreciate everybody being here for the show tonight. But all of this stuff is, for me, it's endlessly inspiring in terms of getting around to it as a storyteller. And I wish, and I don't need this material at all to be inspired to tell stories, but it is something that now more than ever we need to tell stories of hope and things that can occur in terms of the power of the individual, the power of the person to take back their perceived powerlessness and turn it into power. And that's what I think really appealed a lot of people to superhero comics.
Yep.
In general, because it was usually a lot of these people who had their power taken from them. Traumatic experiences happened to them, and they found a way to not just become powerful, but they found a way to then better the lives of others with the use of their own power. You know, but you would see the villain, the counterpoint to the villain is they use their power. They have a traumatic experience usually too, but then they want to enact that trauma upon everybody else, and they use their power to inflict the horror that they went through, so everyone feels their pain. And we see that play out in real life with people as well. You know, it's inspiring to see certain people that go through something horrible and they come out the other side and they're great people and they're trying to do good. And then you see the other people of the world, the villains of the world, where and a lot of the time they could be these utopia type people on the surface.
They're the worst villains.
They're the worst. Well, let's make the world into my design.
And they're here to make everything better for everyone. The greater good.
Yeah. And the greater good always involves, again, you, not them. It's like, you have to sacrifice for the greater good. Okay, well, what are you doing to sacrifice? Oh, me. No, you sacrifice for the greater good.
They're there to oversee everyone else's sacrifice. I'm well familiar with them.
Yeah. Unbelievable. All right. Thank you guys for joining Comic Book Radio tonight. My guest is Michael Bancroft. We're talking about Ancient Civilizations, Secret Societies, and Dreamscapes. We're going to get to the Dreamscapes and Ancient Civilizations part in the second half of the show. We'll be right back in about a minute. And who else's trailer should I play tonight other than the one and only Mr. Michael Bancroft? So we'll see you in a minute, 8 seconds.
You speak as though I have conquered death. I live death every day. I am surrounded by it, smothered by it. Look at you now. He would have everlasting life. You seek to defy death, yet you cannot even defy sleep. And our like sleep is to death. It is a painted death.
All right, Michael, I got a really important question for you. Who did the voiceover for that?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Incredible, my friend.
I just whispered into my mic. I know a little bit about Audacity, and went into it. Actually, I sounded a bit like that in Florida when I lost my voice. So, confirmed. Yeah.
You seek to defy death.
It's just a whisper. It gives you kind of a British-ish sort of accent as you do that,
Yeah, I was gonna say you really managed to tone it into something a little bit different than what you sound like. Great job.
Yeah.
Very nice.
ASMR Bancroft, as Chuck Reardon says. Yes.
Yeah, man, fantastic. So as far as your book goes with the Lucent, before we dive into the other part of the show, what's the Lucent all about for those that don't know?
Well, it's funny that you were talking earlier about, people and power and the individual and everything. I mean, without going right down into the nuts and bolts of the plot of the thing happening, I mean, to link it to this conversation, it's really about individuals and their strength as people And in the Lucent, the way I've set it up is this sort of, that strength has kind of been robbed from humanity a very long time ago, well before, like thousands of years ago. It was sort of taken from us, hidden from us, is secret knowledge, so to speak. And some people have more of a connection to it than others. But essentially what's happened is thousands of years ago, some, powerful people got together and decided that they were going to take this power and kind of like control it for themselves and make sure that no one else really found out about it. And over time, humanity forgot that it even existed. And it only now exists in myths and legends and old stories and religions and that sort of stuff. That's kind of the premise of what the story is. So it really does tie in. I mean, the story is about finding our way back to, taking the knowledge and power back from these kind of tyrannical secret societies that guard it for themselves. Now, that's not really saying anything specific, but essentially, Ella, the main character, she is one of those people who have a heightened innate connection to whatever this thing is. And I'm not going to tell anyone exactly what it is, other than, because it is a mystery story, other than you kind of, the key to discovering it and getting in tune with it is through your dreams. Which is, incidentally, is kind of like the one place where, Big Daddy government can't really get to you. We at least still have that to ourselves. Is our dreams. And so it's very much a hero's journey tale. She is, at the start of the story, just an ordinary person who finds herself in an extraordinary circumstance and will, go on that heroic journey. And she'll face these villains, these people who are in these kind of sects. They'll have allies and all that sort of stuff. And you can see here visually, this story spans thousands and thousands of years. So that's really one of the most fun, interesting parts of it for me, is that you got these characters that we see them thousands of years ago, and then we've got the characters that we see now. How do they connect? What's the connection here? And at the moment, the connection is there, but it's very faint. As the books go on, that connection gets much more established, and that's the whole kind of fun of the story to me.
I wonder if it's a like a descendant kind of a thing or something like that. If there's a connection.
Could be. I'm not going to give any of that away.
All right. Well, the Lucent right now is it's only on your site, right?
Yep, exclusively. So what I think I'm going to be doing is I will eventually put it up onto Indiegogo and Kickstarter, but that will be when the book is all like at the printer, essentially. And I'll run like a 30-day campaign and get people who, want to back on either of those sites, or maybe people who haven't heard about it yet. But I like the idea of they're less likely to know me personally through Twitter or YouTube. So, I'd much rather just have them, get the book and then get it delivered a month or so later.
Very nice.
So,
good.
Yeah,
good,
I mean, the site is going amazingly by itself.
Yeah,
it was a little bit of a gamble.
Incredible.
It's going way better than the first campaign did. So I got no complaints, and I got to set up that whole thing the way I wanted to. So that was good.
That's great, man. Wow, very nice. So you're talking about something in terms of you're mentioning your ancient civilizations and all the other stuff, and you're talking about stuff that reminds me a lot of. And I dropped kind of a paraphrase of the quote with Graham Hancock with what he talks about.
Yes.
We're a civilization with amnesia, and
yes,
it really is interesting because there's so many. I mean, you could take these stories, and I think we should take them a little more seriously than just as fictional, fantastical interpretations. But you can see not just the stories, but you can see the ruins, you can see the structures, you can see all of that built, and we can't even wrap our minds around how this occurred. Obviously, someone was locking into something that enabled them to do what they did. And we don't know. We've forgotten. It's been lost.
That part is undeniable. It's not even up for debate that there were people around at times that we previously, even to this day, maintained that they shouldn't have been able to do what they did, but they did it because it's there and we can go there and we can see it. And there's so much stuff, like the world was so much more connected than we give it credit for, even though you would assume that there was no way that people across all different corners of the world could have interacted, but they're all making very similar things. They're using the same sort of numerology, similar ideologies. Everyone's talking about the Great Flood, the Deluge, and Gilgamesh comes after the flood. That's where his story starts. He was he went out to seek Utnapishtim, who was allegedly one of the sole survivors of the flood. I think he was the kind of original prototype for Noah. That all actually, I do a little thing about that in this book, Painted Death.
Oh, nice.
It's undeniable, and it's really frustrating because, like we mentioned earlier, people will say, well, there's no evidence for that. But the way we've found out now is when scientists and serious people and academics say there's no evidence for that, they treat it as in that's evidence that it doesn't exist. It's not that at all. The fact is we just don't know. And that should be a really big impetus to go out there and learn and find. And I think as storytellers, it's on us. And I'm seeing so many, I promote so many people. So many people are tapped into this part of our civilization, this mysterious time when things happened that we still to this day can't explain. And when I first learnt about it through Graham Hancock, that I was just like, well, I'm all in. I mean, this has to be part of what I'm doing. And it was like it was destiny, because it just slot right in, and it kind of explains so much. And it's funny, what I'm trying to do with the Lucent is create a alternate history of a kind of unified field of all this stuff all together, and offer an explanation that would explain all of it. Now, obviously, it's easy for me because I can play with fantasy. I can, things can happen in a fantastical way. Mm-hmm. I don't need any evidence. I can just say, well, they can do these things because it's a fantasy. But the fact that it touches on stuff that really does exist. These myths are real. The places exist. That adds so much weight to the story, and I didn't understand why. I just thought it was super cool and fun until I was actually watching a video by Narwhal, and he explained it like this. He said people are so much more interested in a story, a fantasy story, if they can think that this actually happened. It's just kind of outside their grasp. Even Star Wars started with, in a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago. So it's like, oh, this actually happened. And
it's interesting the words used on that. Long time ago.
Exactly, because it's unfalsifiable for you, sort of sitting there watching it, but you can feel it. And when so I'm noticing so many people doing the same thing with their stories, and I love it. I'm like all in on my story, and I think I've figured out a way to incorporate it in a very unique, interesting way that I haven't seen before. So yeah, no, it's really interesting stuff, and I don't know, I'm so into it.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, that really helps too, and that's what I love to see about not just any comic, but especially independent created comics. I love to see people who are diving deep into stuff that they're interested in, the stuff that fascinates them, and then they're bringing that into their story too. It's the same exact thing I do with King Cryptid. And even last year, I used to kind of say it's like a world similar to our own. It's got the same town and everything else, that sort of thing. But I'm just like, you know what? It's our world. It's our world. And
it's our world, but we just can't see it because it's being hidden from us. Or
maybe it's like a sixth dimension or something that's happening.
Whatever it is, whatever the method is, it just adds so much richness to the story, so much depth.
And it's funny because we're all running our own little simulations every time we create these worlds, aren't we? We're playing with all these different things, all these outcomes that can occur. we're running our own simulations. All these things that are very complex, all these things that are so expansive. You know, it runs into that. When you were talking about your book, it made me think a little bit that it's like a more interesting version of the Matrix.
Yeah, well, that's funny you should say that.
To me
because
personally, anyway.
I had this premise. And the premise I said earlier was the way to tap into these abilities is through your dreams. And certain people are able to do it better. And that runs, that makes sense to us just off the bat because, you know, people dream differently. And some people say, I always know when I'm dreaming. I always do this or that. And, well, what if that actually mattered? What if that mattered to how connected you were to this kind of mystery? So that makes sense. But I didn't know how to tell a story. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't really know much about the hero's journey. I didn't know much about all that sort of structural stuff. And then I saw The Matrix. And it reminded me of this story that I had percolating in my head. And I was like, that's interesting. Now, what happens in The Lucent isn't the same thing as what happens in The Matrix. But it was inspired by that. It kind of kicked me up the butt to sort of, all right, tell your story. But just do it better. You know, that there were things in obviously I love The Matrix, but there were things in it that kind of I would have done differently if I was the person who made it. So that's kind of what I'm doing. You know, I'm making my own story.
Yeah, and that story is an old one. You know,
exactly
the world that we can't see, that we're immersed in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even in The Matrix, it alludes to various other stories, talking about like Alice in Wonderland and a bunch of different things like that.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, I really like the aspect that you're incorporating ancient civilizations into that. The dreamscape part, that I don't know if you've ever had it or anybody in the chat has ever had dreams like this, but I've had dreams like this where I feel like I'm still me, but I must be a different version of me somewhere else, and I'm looking through that version's eyes of what they're going through. So what I mean by that is that I'll have dreams where people feel very familiar to me. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, best friend or, you know, spouse, or, you know, in dreams I've got kids, or dreams of, you know, I'm here, I'm there, wherever. The place I live in, it's very familiar. It's just you walk about it as if you know exactly where the kitchen is, you know where the bathroom is, you know, and but you've never seen it in your normal waking life. You've never seen it before ever. You've never seen these people before ever. You don't even know their names. You don't know, and you'll wake up sometime even with a name of being like, Paul? Who's Paul? You know, stuff like that. And you didn't watch anything. You didn't read anything. Nothing of the normal explanation to say that this is why you dreamt that. You know, and I've had a few dozen dreams like that, different kinds of dreams, different time periods, different places sometimes that didn't even look like Earth. You know, have you ever had anything like that?
Yes. The answer is yes. And this is the reason why I had this premise for so long. Because I've had such profound experiences in dreams. And it goes all the way back to childhood. I can remember, the earliest dream I remember, I was 2 years old. And I remember that because I remember the dream and I remember wanting to remember it. And it's crazy to me, but that it's stuck with me for that long. And I can remember dreams from my whole childhood, obviously, you know, recently and everything. And in my early 20s, I got really into lucid dreaming. And that was just like, I mean, I don't take psychedelics like Graham Hancock. But I have had...
Yeah, me either. Yeah, I want to preface, I've never done anything.
No, me either. I'm not a drug person.
Just never had.
But I have had the most vivid hallucinations that have come to me through dreaming, and this whole lucid dreaming thing. It's insane. And you know, you try and explain it to people, and most people, dreams are this sort of hazy thing that they can sometimes remember when they wake up if something kind of triggers a memory. But for me, they were a really big part of my life. They were, you know, like almost not as important, but almost as important as what was happening during the day, because I would have these ongoing storylines, these people that I knew only in the dreams. These are things that I was doing in the dreams. I was learning things, and I was taking what I was learning and getting progressively better over the years. It was just this really crazy time of my life, and that's what inspired the whole Lucent story. It was like, what if this was a bit more real? What if it had a bit more meaning to it, and it could actually reach outside the dreams? Exactly. And that's where it all started. It was from that. And I met my main character Ella in a dream. And there was a kind of a profound experience. The point where I was like, has to be a character in this story. And all sorts of stuff like that. So absolutely.
It's crazy too, because there's been some pretty good guesses, but there's still nothing absolutely conclusive as to why we dream and how we dream.
That's the ultimate mystery. It's the ultimate mystery.
Yeah.
And there's some. I've read some good stuff. I've read some pretty. Oh, that sounds like it could be.
Yeah, there's
true,
some solid theories, but
it might be unknowable. That might end up being unknowable. We just don't know. But I'll tell you what I do know is there are some spooky stories out there, and I've had a couple of them personally where I've dreamt of places that I've never been, and then been to them later on in real life, and just been completely
like the
awestruck.
deja vu feeling in a way. Like
yeah,
but
imagine deja vu, just like injected right into your heart, like deja vu times 1,000, and everything that goes with that. It was a really kind of life-changing moment. It's like, wow, I had a really vivid dream about this place, and now I'm here standing it in real life, and I knew I'd never been there before. I'd never visited that place before. It was crazy. And yeah, what is that about? I don't know. And there's crazy stories in that too.
I was just about to say this. I was about to say this. Broadcasting delta waves, we are a shared consciousness with strong filters to keep our sanity. Now, I wasn't going to say it to a T, but I was going to talk about the delta waves of the brain when you're in that dream state. Mm-hmm. And the brain being doing more research into it, and more. This is becoming more conclusive, where the brain is like an antenna of receiving and transmitting. And that's a lot of how it works. That's it. Like when and we've used this language for forever. Where did that come from? Where did that idea come from? Oh, I picked it from the ether. I got it from the ether. In the ether.
I say it all the time. Everyone...
Yeah. And it's like we've referred to these concepts not just in that terminology, but it's been referred to forever in all of human existence. Of just like, oh yeah, you just pick it from, this field, this thing, this whatever it may be.
And how often has that happened in history, where people have done something or said something or talked about something that they didn't quite understand yet, so they used the language that they had at the time to understand it, and then later on it was better understood. But it totally does feel like that. I do get into that a little bit in the Lucent, where when I originally wrote it, I did get into the whole different alpha, delta, gamma waves and everything, but I felt like I was just getting too much in the weeds, and I kind of left all that stuff out. But yeah, totally, the kind of shared consciousness thing, it's very mysterious, and it's very ethereal, but we kind of feel something, even if we don't believe it, or we definitely don't understand it. We kind of feel something, and we don't know how to articulate it.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. And I think that's something that you can really look back, and it helps to explain a lot of what was going on in ancient times. And then I think we're going to find with technology today, because everything that we consider metaphysical or this or that or whatever, it's just a word for we just haven't been able to prove it yet. The paranormal is paranormal until it's absolutely normal, and there's so many instances of that over the past 100 years. And we're just not either at a point, and that's the part that's infuriating, that goes and ties into the secret society part and the secrecy, the big time secrecy in general, because there's obviously this knowledge that some know, and they want to keep it to themselves, because if the knowledge was among the masses, then you lose the power and the control that comes with that knowledge.
Exactly.
So if we all knew the secrets...
You have just described the premise for the Lucent.
Wonderful. Yes.
And I mean, it's funny, like this phone here. I mean, this is a piece of magic to someone from 1500. I mean, you know, I can
Oh
talk
my
to
lord, yeah.
I can talk
They'd
to someone
kill you.
instantly on the other side of the world with this. I
You're
can
a warlock.
calculate. I can calculate anything that I need.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, what's it going to be like in 500 years to us? Stuff is going to seem just, you know, totally impossible.
Oh yeah, yeah, and then even go further than that, and we have civilizations that that we're thinking we're going back like 20, 30,000 years or so,
Mm-hmm.
and all I could picture is what's 20, 30,000 years ahead of us, and if and I don't know what your belief would revolve around in terms of extraterrestrial life, and not in terms of visiting here, but just it's just the odds are overwhelmingly on the side of that there's life that's either as or way more intelligent than us within the whole cosmos. But if you're
Didn't they just
dealing-
figure out that the universe might be double the age
Yeah.
that we thought it was?
Yeah, allegedly, yeah. You know,
that's-
it's
So that's
probably even
that's
older than that.
You know, yeah, I mean, who knows? But you know, that just throws a massive monkey wrench into the whole thing. It almost gets to the point of where it's like, well, it's really kind of. I mean, it has to be the way.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
because I remember when I was a kid, they didn't even know that there were planets anywhere else. They guessed that there probably should be, but they didn't know. And now they know, all right, anywhere there's a star, there's planets. And a lot of those planets, you know, have liquid water and all sorts of stuff on it and everything. So it's just, oh, okay, so there's hundreds and hundreds of billions of planets across the, you know, galaxy or universe or whatever. I mean, it's just a numbers game.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah, that's why it's also it's so weird that the secrecy on certain things is ramped up, because they keep on. If you can piece anything together logically, you know, but they'll call you a conspiracy theorist. I'm surprised at this point in time that DC Comics hasn't just run Batman out of the universe, calling him a conspiracy theorist. He's not the world's greatest detective. He's the world's craziest conspiracy theorist. You know?
Is that it?
Yeah, you know, he's just a nut with all the little push pins and the strings, and you know, nothing adds up, but to him it does. But at this point in time, there's so much stuff that is you can just piece together logically these various things that it really is just drop it already. We're not getting any favors from anything to have so much secrecy across the board on every single level. That whole concept of like mass panic and if people knew the truth and blah blah blah. It's so overblown at this point, you know, and we see it being like this drip feed. You know, this soft disclosure constantly, and a big push to that is always within mass media too, whether it's Hollywood or whatever else, just to get you comfortable and familiar with the idea, good or bad. You know, they always just do the test run, just to see how it is. You know, and how will they work with this thing and that thing and the other thing. And it's just drop it already. It feels like everybody is just fine and on board, and we're ready to go. We're ready to know what the truth is about everything, and let's just get to where we got to get to, because the way it's going right now is not working out. It's only working out for a very, very small amount of people, and those people, like you talked about earlier, they're going to start dying off. You know, so at some point in time, is it going to be, well, in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to have a full and complete disclosure, or is it going to be even more secrecy, or what's going to happen? Because the way it's going, it just seems like you're slowly leaking all the secrets out. Someone's out there doing it, whether it's approved or not approved. Something is happening.
Well, we're in a new paradigm now with the internet and videos and all that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, it's just like times changing, countries changing, all that sort of stuff. So I expect it to keep ramping up. I don't know. A lot of people say, especially with the alien stuff, that's all a psyop. I think a lot of it probably is, but that doesn't mean it also isn't based on some kind of truth. So for me, I mean, I believe in all that stuff anyway. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can probably just trust on the fact that if people can glean power from keeping things secret, they will continue to. But maybe what is kept secret changes. So, just like the great original conspiracy theory was JFK.
That's when they
eventually
practically coined the damn term.
Yeah, eventually that holds no power anymore. You get to a point where people are like, oh, we found out who killed some president that no one even remembers the name of, centuries ago, and no one cares about anymore. Like, eventually it does get to that.
Yeah, it's like the Napoleon quote that you don't have to I'm going to butcher the quote. But the quote is basically that you don't have to necessarily bury the truth. You just have to prolong it enough until no one cares.
It was interesting in writing the Lucen because I was kind of in this older mindset when I started, where I thought I'm going to have to come up with some sort of plot device or something that when information does get out, like when there's a big event, say for instance at the end of the first book, Waking Dream, Ella kind of essentially teleports to the middle of a busy London street and is floating in the air. And I'd sort of come up with ways that could be kind of buried by this, secret society. And then I just realized, you know what? I don't think they need to do much. Like a little bit of misinformation on the news, a little bit of all someone would have to do is say, oh, the original video was sourced back to a VFX artist and it's done. It's dead. No one believes it anymore. That's all it would have to be. And then you got a few handful of pesky eyewitnesses. Who's going to believe them? They get buried. It's like it's such a strange time that we live in right now, where that's just kind of how it is. People are very cynical at the moment because I guess that's what happens after you've been constantly gaslit and lied to by the major institutions for decade after decade, and they do it to your face. And it's so funny when you ever had that moment where, say, a politician is up there lying to everyone and the crowd knows they're lying. Obviously the politician knows they're lying, the journalists know they're lying, but no one wants to ask the politician a question that would expose the lie. Everyone just sort of sits there and goes along with it to kind of keep the status quo. And you just clothes. And if anytime any crazy person kind of charges in and says something crazy, it's all like, oh, a crazy lunatic burst in and started spouting
it's
stuff.
Like they have a meeting today. 2 + 2 = 5. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yes, brilliant. Yeah. 2 + 2 = 5. That's correct. Yeah, everyone, let's talk about 2 + 2 = 5. And then someone just goes, 2 + 2 = 4. What the hell are you talking about? Look at this crazy conspiracy theorist over here.
That's how it feels like.
I bet you're a racist and a misogynist too.
It's maddening. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, what they said is neither here nor there. We've learnt that 15 years ago they tweeted something about Indians, back in the day. So they're a complete, racist. So we don't have to listen to anything they say now. That's how it goes. Like the smear is really quick and easy. So I think any kind of organization that has any sort of power and influence on the world will be able to bury pretty much anything. And I think we've seen that. There are reports of all sorts of strange things happening with thousands of people, eyewitnesses. It doesn't convince anyone.
Everybody here, there's 100.
Witness it yourself.
There's 102 people here. If anything ever happens to me or Michael and people say something about it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not how it went down.
Exactly.
But it really is. It's a lot like that, and we see it play out time and again. Now, touching back again on I saw Ethan. Ethan went to the ER today. Well, at least I don't know if the ER, but he at least got checked in and checked up on.
Out, yeah.
And he seems like he's doing okay, but I wish he would go a little bit easier than.
It's to me what he was describing. I listened to the stream. It sounded like stress-induced panic attack because I know people who've had that, and the symptoms seem similar. And I'm just thinking, all right, so he's got friggin' all these campaigns running at the same time. One of them is still fulfilling. whatever else craziness is going on out there. Yeah, I could see that happen. But I don't know.
Yeah. Take it easy, everybody out there, including Ethan. Goodness. Yeah. So circling back to your comic, you touch upon all the three things we're talking about tonight: ancient civilizations, secret societies, dreamscapes. Is there anything we're missing that the comic touches upon that you want to discuss, or does that kind of sum it up?
Well, that's sort of the very meta kind of subtext that runs under the whole thing. I mean, on the face of it, it really is a story about the protagonist.
What Ella's going through.
Exactly. What we've been talking about, if we want to link it back to, I do like this analogy, link it back to Star Wars. Star Wars, what we've been talking about is the Empire and what that means, and the galaxy and the Jedi and the Force and all that sort of stuff. But really, Star Wars was a story about Luke Skywalker finding out that he has this sort of ability and his connection to it, and then him going off to, fight for the rebellion and, his own freedom and the freedom of others. So it really is about that. And, Ella is she's a young woman who's, she's got these strange things that happen to her in her dreams, but she otherwise is kind of stuck like Luke Skywalker was on Tatooine in this kind of boring life. And she's been yearning for something a bit more, and that's what happens in the Lucent. Is she kind of be careful what you wish for, because it might come true, and she gets thrust into that crazy world. And so there's all these characters, allies, maybe not allies, maybe half allies that come into play here. I wish I could talk more about them, but going back to what we said about the Matrix, the thing that I didn't like the most about the Matrix was the fact that the mystery was given away right at the start almost. And I can remember watching the Matrix for the first time before he found out what it was all about, and I was just in this state of awe. And I was just, this is the best thing ever, because I didn't know what this was. And it was, so when I said I want to prolong this mystery for, as long, obviously you can't take it to the end, but for as long as I can in my story. So it does get difficult to talk about all this stuff, because there are characters who are sort of, they're from the dream world, they're from the past, how does this all connect? Yeah, it gets really hard to say, because we're getting into spoiler territory, and I do want to give the readers that sense of fun with the mystery for as long as possible. But that's sort of the only other big thing I really want to let people know, that it is it's an entertaining mystery alongside all the other kind of deep stuff and cerebral ideas about mortality and civilization and history and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Man, oh man. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, please go do so. Here's the link again for thelucentcomic.com. And so you were mentioning something too that kind of interested me, because when you were talking about the different things and the different layers to your story, I'm thinking about when you're reading the book, I bet there's an element to it where you're like, what here is real? What's reality? What is
yes.
Yeah, who's who here, and what part are they playing, and to what end? So is it kind of like there's a mystery to this too at the heart of it, right?
There is a mystery, and that's sort of there are, in any good mystery story, there are also red herrings. So be aware of that. Some things you might think, oh, maybe it's this, but I'm purposely sending you off down a path that might, be a distraction for something larger that you're not aware of yet. But the way it's written is that when you first read the first book, now if you just read it surface level, you read a sort of intriguing story about a woman in this very strange situation, but you know as much as she does, which is not very much. And so you might be left confused, or who's who? Who's all this? What's all this happening? But you're intrigued, hopefully. And like, oh, I want to learn more about this. Obviously, underneath that, I am laying in all this kind of hidden subtext that you don't have any real. You can't really. It's like a puzzle, all different puzzle pieces, but you can't put them back. You can't put them together yet because you don't know the full picture and you don't know how they all line up. But as the books go on, I'm giving you more of those pieces. You'll be able to put more of them together. And I think that's the fun of it. So a lot of the things in the first book, second book, they will make much more sense on many more levels once you've read the third book, fourth book, and continue on to the end. And that to me is like, I love reading stories like that. Always have. You know, when I get, oh, that's a callback to the first book or whatever.
Yeah, that's the best.
They get that realization, and when it actually means something, when it's not just trivial, it actually has a purpose to the story. That's when I'm like, okay. I always say that's when I'm reading a book, I'm like, okay, this has gone from a good book to a great book. Yeah, is when they pull that off. So I'm definitely trying to do that in my story.
When you can kind of have those callback moments, especially when you're unfolding the story and it's unfolding along for you as well as for the main character.
Yeah.
You know, and that's great because there's so many stories nowadays where I find the storytelling is so lacking in terms of being revelatory, where it just feels like things are either already known or there's no mystery to it, or the character already knows everything they're gonna know, and so therefore as a reader you're not really gonna develop much of anything out of this. You're just watching the instruction manual play out, you know, and at the end you have the end of the story, and that's what it is. There isn't anything that gives you insight into those characters, into the psychology of what they're doing, their motivations, how it plays out when all of a sudden now there's a twist and a turn that occurs, and how are they going to react to it. You know, that gives you something to feel emotionally as well. I find there's a lot of modern storytelling that's almost like afraid to make you feel anything other than, you know, whatever the narrative is that they're pushing, more or less. Do you find any of that to be true, or am I just seeing some of the wrong stuff and I'm missing some of the good?
No, that definitely happens out there where, you watch something, it's entertaining, but it just doesn't really connect on any.
It doesn't punch as hard as a lot of the stuff used to.
I've definitely found some good stuff that makes me think and feel. I recently watched a show called Silo. But of course, it's a lot of the best stuff is all based on really popular novel series. Usually, that's what I've found out. So, that's what that is. Look, it's out there. It's just, I do understand. There's a lot of stuff. Recently, I watched the Indiana Jones movie, where it was just.
I didn't see that. What did you?
It was just.
Thoughts?
It was just a thing. It was like, oh, there's Indiana Jones running around. He's doing forget about it. Very much like that. So, look, I think overall the trend has been, they've kind of corporatized storytelling, a lot of recently, but there's still amazing stuff happening, and the thing about in the indies is when people make good stuff, it can be great because it doesn't have those corporations getting their grubby mitts into it.
The but also a lot of times of the corporation.
Yeah. Also, a lot of time you're getting people's first ever attempts at storytelling, and it's not as sophisticated and stuff like that. So you gotta take the good with the bad on both ends, and then occasionally something really great comes out of a big company. Jay Ryan mentions Arcane, which was a TV show based on League of Legends that came out a couple of years ago. I'm actually just watching it again right now. That's so funny. He should mention that. And Arcane, to me, is like a pinnacle of visual storytelling that, just come out in the last couple of years. So it is out there. It's just maybe there's not as much of it, or it's being hidden under layers of junk. Yeah. That's what I think.
What's Arcane? What company is that?
Well, it's Riot Press. So Riot Press.
Oh, okay.
Not Riot Press. Riot Studios.
Okay.
The Right Press is PTP's thing. Right Studios, the people who make League of Legends, they teamed together with this animation company in France called. It's an amazing animation company, and they made this incredible story just because they wanted to, and yeah, I love it.
I'll give that I'll look that up. I'll give that a shot. See, Nicole says you also love From.
Oh yeah, I like From. I mean, it's funny. Jeremy Ice and Fire has built up his whole channel around From, and actually really enjoyed that. Hanging out in the chat and talking the show a little bit more than I like the show. I mean, the show is great. I do like it. But I love that whole, because it's one of those shows, it's a bit like The Lucent, where you can come up with theories. And obviously there's a lot more of it, though, because they're in their second season. So there's a lot more meat on the bone, so to speak. But it's funny, yeah, I really like the whole theorizing about it and everything. I love that sort of stuff, and there's a ton of that in The Lucent.
I gave up on that show after they put the dude in the box. I think that was like episode 3 or 4 or something. Yeah. I was just like, I don't know. Is this going to be a show where everyone's cryptic all the time and they're like, I'll tell you later.
Yes.
Can't tell you right now.
That is frustrating. That does happen. So
be direct, God damn it. Be direct.
Yeah, that is a frustration that comes with the show, but yeah, I know. I think I have faith that they're gonna pull it through, but we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I thought it was. It wasn't necessarily bad in terms of like the acting or whatnot, but when that happened, I was like, man, that's pretty extreme, and people are gonna be like, yeah, I guess that's what we do here. I'm like, man, wow, this is a weird place.
Yeah.
So I do wonder how that's gonna go with that show, but I don't know. I mean, maybe maybe one day I'll revisit it. Maybe one day. Nicole says
maybe
to give
wait
it
until
shot.
Maybe wait until it finishes and everyone says if it like sticks the landing, because that's usually with these types of shows.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear. Is it does, because it's the Lost people, right? And I wasn't a fan of the last season there of how Lost went down.
No, I never even watched it. But some people love it, some people hate it. I'm not going to go back. It's too far now. But
yeah. I don't recommend it. I don't recommend you go back.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. I don't want to be disappointed.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being with us tonight. We're coming upon an hour and a half. We're going to be taking off at this point, getting back to work. I'm sure both Michael and me. I know I got work to do, and Michael's always got work to do.
Always.
So we're going to be
the weight of the world on our shoulders.
We're going to be wrapping up the show. Everybody, thank you guys so much. We covered a lot of topics tonight, and we really dove deep into Michael's book, The Lucent. One last question for you before we go. How many books do you have planned for The Lucent?
At the moment, it's looking for Ella's story, the main books, 6 books altogether. And but I will have other books in the meantime between campaigns, so like one-shot books that sort of just expand the universe. Same characters, same world, but it's like not part of that arc,
Gotcha.
so to speak. Yeah.
And you're doing like 1 or so a year? Is that how it's working out?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm going to try to do. With between mine and someone else, doing the art on another one. So that's the goal anyway, at least for now. Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome, man. Well, I can't wait to see where you go with it. And I'm looking forward to picking it up one day soon, very, very soon. And I appreciate you also having me on your channel, Talk King Cryptid, as well. It's always a blast on your channel.
It was great.
And always good talking to you too, man. We should just do like a book swap.
Yeah, I know.
Don't even back each other. Just like a book swap. I'll mail you the books, you mail me the books, and we'll call it. Yeah, we'll just break even on it. I'll throw in some extras too for you to make up for the difference in price.
I like it.
But man, oh man, thank you so much. It's been great. And everybody in the chat, thank you guys as well. If you enjoyed the show, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. We hit 2,500 backers, 2,500 subscribers today. Thank you guys very much for being here. Really appreciate you guys in the chat. You always bring it. It's great questions, great chat. And everybody, we'll have more shows like this. I got a lot of guests this week and the rest of the month as well. So make sure you stay tuned. Michael, thank you so much, man. Always so good talking to you. And we'll do this again sometime soon. Everybody, take it easy. Have a wonderful night. No problem at all, man. Anytime at all. Anytime. Everybody have a wonderful night. We'll see you soon. Take it easy.